All right, we can go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everyone. Depending on what time zone you're in, it might be afternoon, night, or morning, given our international audience. But welcome everyone that's listening live today, as well as anyone that might be watching this recording afterwards. My name is Kelsey Kwasniak. I'm going to be your exhibits and sponsorship manager moving forward for Duty Free in preparation for our 2026 Summit of the Americas event. So we're super excited. I'm new to the team, just like Sarah is here. So I'd love to hand it over to maybe Sarah first introduce, and then of course, Steve, as we all know him.
Thanks, Kelsey. Yes, I am Sarah Appleton. I believe I've probably spoken to a lot of you already. If not, you can certainly look forward to some conversations with me moving into 2026. Very excited to move through these new processes and answer any questions you may have. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Kelsey. I know probably most of the folks that are on this webinar today, and just want to thank you, first of all, for joining us today, and want to welcome Kelsey and Sarah to new members of the association team. And I'm delighted to be working with an expanded team this year. Also very excited about the 2026 Summit of the Americas at the Rose and Shingle Creek. We've been to the property. It's very nice. I think it'll be a good home for 2026. So Kelsey, back over to you.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Well, as a reminder, Steve, of course, is our executive director. Sarah Appleton here is our sales director. So this might be a new process for everyone here moving forward. But just as a friendly reminder, if you didn't get our recent emails, that Sarah will be your first point of contact as you're working through that contracting process. And of course, once you sign that contract, you'll be handed over to me and I'll be your go-to person leading up to the show. So then once your contract's signed, any exhibits questions, questions about your exhibitor appointed contractor, working with Fern, our general services contractor, any of those questions, I will be able to be your day-to-day person. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off. But before we get into it, I do want to make sure, oh, actually, Sarah and Steve, we can probably go off camera now. That way everybody can just hear us great. Awesome. So as we're going through this webinar, I just wanted to give a few reminders as you're listening in. So as a reminder, this is a webinar format in Zoom. So what that means is that everyone can see myself, Sarah, and Steve. Of course, we're off video right now through the entire duration of this webinar, but then we'll come back on at the end for Q&A. But as a reminder, we are not in a meeting format, so that means I cannot see you as an attendee. But of course, you can use our Q&A function, which is located either at the top or bottom of your screen in your Zoom toolbar. Also shown here, a screenshot here. So use the Q&A feature throughout the webinar if you think of a question, and we're happy to get to it at the end during our live Q&A. Of course, if there's any specific questions you may have, maybe it's very specific to your booth, or maybe you're trying not sure what to decide of how to prepare for space selection. You can always, of course, send us an email afterwards, and we're happy to answer those very specific questions. And of course, this webinar today is being recorded. It is going to be posted on our 2026 Summit of the Americas website within about 24 hours. Under our exhibits and sponsorship page. So if you want to refer back to this, the slide deck, or the recording, you can always take a look after. All right. So before we dive in today, I wanted to review just some additional items as well in terms of topics on the agenda. So today we're going to be covering quite a bit of material, but very important information. So our key show details, space selection, email communications that are planned to prepare you for space selection, reviewing the prospectus, navigating the hotel, as well as a floor plan review, how to prepare for space selection in advance, and then what to do for space selection the day of, so that you're ready to select your space, whether it's a private meeting room or an exhibit space, via your appointment. Our rules and regulations as a review, as well as some critical dates, and then we'll get into the Q&A. All right, so let's review some of our key show details. So the 2026 Summit of the Americas will be held March 28th through the 31st next year in 2026 at the Rose and Shingle Creek Resort in Orlando, Florida. So note that our official show dates are the 28th through the 31st. However, exhibitor move-in is going to start on Friday, March 27th at 8 a.m. So as you're planning your flights as well as your hotel rooms, make sure that you're giving yourself time to arrive on Friday versus the official show dates. Our primary event space breakdown is listed here of all the space that we are using during our event. So we'll also visually review this later in the slides just to give you a better idea and to overall familiarize yourself with our space. And then another key item we know your team is planning for is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, housing and registration. We are planning to, or really aiming to be open by early November to register your team members and book your hotel rooms. So this information is also going to be provided via email to the primary contact that you put on your contract once this is available. So you can start reserving rooms and registering your staff. Finally, one last key show detail as it stands currently. So just a note for any exhibitor that specializes in alcohol as one of their products that they typically bring. So just keep in mind that at the Rose and Shingle Creek, all companies that wish to have any kind of alcohol sampling in their booth are currently required to hire a hotel bartender to pour samples. So keep in mind, you are required to hire that bartender right now. Our show management team is going to inform any exhibitor that typically provides that kind of sampling opportunity in their booth. Any kind of change that comes, we will send you an email. However, I would plan to have to budget for a bartender to pour those samples in your booth. Sarah, would you like to go into our communication schedule?
Sure. As a reminder, you must submit your contract by October 31st in order to participate in space selection. Your specific date and appointment time will be sent via email to the primary contact indicated on your signed contract on November 10th. Space for the 2026 summit will be assigned taking into consideration past exhibit history, space availability, space needs of the exhibitor, and timing of your requests. Space selection will then take place on November 17th and 18th. Companies will have 10 minutes to review the floor plan with our team based on what's available to select, your exhibit space or private meeting room. After space selection concludes, email confirmations and invoices will be sent the following week. 50% of your space will be due by December 5th, 2025. The remaining 50% will be due January 23rd of 2026. Here we've linked the 2026 prospectus for you to review, which includes the contract and floor plan link, as well as our sponsorship opportunities. If you do have any questions, please ensure you contact me at the email address that I have there, which is sappleton@iaadfs.org. One additional thing I do want to bring up on the floor plan, obviously it is shown currently as 10 by 10 squares. We do build to suit, so whatever size you're looking for, we can certainly do that.
Thanks, Sarah. All right. So now we've just talked about our communication schedule. So that allows your team to plan when to expect more information from us regarding your appointment time so that you can be ready with your date and time to select your space. But also a very important thing as it plays into space selection is, of course, familiarizing yourself with the hotel and our event space. So let's go ahead and do that. So first, I want to start with a floor plan of the overall Rose and Shingle Creek, just to get everyone a little bit more familiar. And I know sometimes it's, hard to visually see this and get comfortable if you've never been to this hotel before, but you can easily see this here. And then once you get there, it'll feel definitely a little bit more familiar. So starting where essentially most Ubers and Lyfts will drop you off, there's a driveway that will take the vehicles up here, outside, in the front. And then essentially you enter in through the lobby. Now to your left is where the front desk is going to be to check into your staff rooms, also go up to your hotel rooms, in advance before move-in. And essentially all of our event space is luckily very condensed. So to get to it, you're just going to take a right at the lobby and you head down a very nice hallway with a lot of wonderful shops, coffee shops, restaurants, great opportunities to not only take attendees out for dinner, but also for your staff to grab a quick bite instead of having to head off site. So you'll head down this long hallway here, and you essentially enter a rotunda area. So it's a round area, and then it leads to our event space. So for reference, over here it'll be your left when you're there in person, but it's showing as the right here on the floor plan, will be where our private meeting rooms are, the Swanee rooms. Those are all down this hallway here. And then if you were to take a right standing in the rotunda, it looks like it's on the left here, you'll go down escalators and then you will see our Pensacola space, which is our primary event space where everything else will be hosted with the exception of our receptions each night. So, and I'll show this on our next floor plan, which kind of breaks it up a little bit better, but it is where our general session, our exhibit hall, our networking lounge is going to be hosted. And then, of course, at the end of the hallway here is our registration desk. So as a reminder, you're heading down a long hallway, you get to a rotunda, and meeting rooms are on one side, and then down escalators is our remaining event space. So everything is in a very condensed area for everyone to be able to network, which we know is so important. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, our outdoor receptions each night are going to be held in our Gatlin Terrace up here. So it's a beautiful outdoor space and it's right outside our main event space. So very convenient. Everything will be virtually in most of the same spot here. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our main exhibit and private meeting room floor plan to get you more familiar with that as you prepare for space selection. So, as I just mentioned on our kind of bird's eye view of Rose and Shingle Creek, you're essentially heading down one direction to get to either the meeting rooms or to our main general session and exhibit hall networking lounge space. So the rotunda is essentially in the middle here, and you're either heading over to this side to get to the meeting rooms. Now, while this is referenced as level 2 meeting rooms, because you have to walk up a flight of stairs, it is very much not so far away from the remainder of this space. So just keep that in mind if you're interested in contracting a private meeting room. You're essentially walking down a hallway here, and that is how you're seeing all of our rooms. So the first rooms that you see right up at the front here are Swanee 11 and Swanee 21, and then you head down that hallway. That is how the rooms are set up on this side. And then if you were at the rotunda at the end of that hallway and you wanted to go down escalators, that is what's going to bring you down to what you'll first see is our doors to our general session. At the end of the hallway is our registration desk. And then right here is, of course, our networking lounge. And then if you were to walk around the hallway here, where my cursor is, you'll see our 2 entrances to get into the exhibit hall. So a very easy to navigate space and very condensed. So really everything is quite close to one another, all in one spot. Now, for a traditional exhibit space, you'll definitely want to look into the Pensacola area versus a private meeting room space. As Sarah mentioned earlier, these are set as 10 by 10 in the US measurement system of 100 square feet, but we can combine them and really modify them to be the size that you need them to be. Another thing to take into account as your team is planning what space you'd like to select is that if you plan to contract more than 600 square feet of space, you are going to be required to select your space down here within the H area, which is designated here below this line. So starting in the 200 aisle down,
I'm
anything
sorry,
over
Kelsey,
600.
we're not seeing the
Yeah.
floor plan.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Let's see here. Interesting. Let me try this. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry about that, Sarah. Thanks for chiming in. let me
Sorry.
recap just so that no, all good. I think that's how we know we're live, and I appreciate everyone letting me know. All right, let me just do a recap here. So just as a reminder, I know I was saying a bunch of things there, but as a reminder, the overall floor plan of the Rose and Shingle Creek essentially brings you down a hallway, past all of these kind of restaurants and shops. It brings you to a rotunda area where you essentially can go left, from your point of view when you're walking to the meeting rooms. You go up a flight of stairs, and then you get to the front where the meeting rooms are placed. So these are the first meeting rooms you see. And as you go down this hallway is where you're able to see and view the remainder of the meeting rooms. Also note that when you hover over each of the spaces, it'll tell you how much square or how many square feet it is, depending on what size you're looking for. Now, if we come over on the other side, so if you were to turn the other direction from the rotunda, you would go down a set of escalators. And the first thing you're going to see is our general session room doors leading up to our networking lounge and then our registration desk here. And then to get to the exhibit hall, you're just walking, turning the corner here. And these are our two entrances. And what I mentioned before, as Sarah mentioned, so again, this is all in 10 by 10, 100 square feet US based measurements. Now, if you need a specific space, you let us know, and we can certainly make a lot of those adjustments. The most important thing here, though, to take into account is that if you are wanting more than 600 square feet, you are going to be required to take space in the H side here. And that is to ensure that both Fern, our general services contractor, and if you are bringing in exhibitor appointed contractor, that both teams can accommodate the time that you're going to need to move out after our show closes on Tuesday, March 31st. Essentially, this space above in the G spot will be released after Tuesday evening. So this is really only accommodated for smaller spaces, 500 square feet or less. So if you have a smaller space, you can easily go into the G area here. And then if you have a larger space, we recommend going onto the H side here. Now, as you can see, as I mentioned, you have two entrances into the exhibit hall. However, another great benefit is that if you were to walk into the networking lounge, there also will be an air wall open. So attendees will still be able to come in through this side as well. So these are definitely important things to take into account as you're starting to plan where you're thinking you want to select your space. Now, another question that I know we've gotten is photos of the private meeting rooms. We definitely have those to share. So if there's any specific questions as you're, asking questions to myself or to Sarah in preparation for your space selection appointment, we're happy to answer those to make sure that you're making the best possible decision for your team and what space that you need to contract. All right. So we reviewed the floor plan, and now we're going to prepare for space selection to make sure that your team has an idea of some of your top preferences. Are you going to contract a meeting room or an exhibit space? So we'll provide a couple tips here to make sure that you're prepared. So to ensure for a smooth and time-efficient space selection, as we mentioned earlier, you're going to get 10 minutes to select your space, an actual appointment time, which we will email in advance. So just know that the floor plan is going to be live the entire time. Excuse me. The floor plan will be live the entire time. So that means that as we're renting space, you will see any spots that are taken for companies that may have selected ahead of you. As a reminder, space selection takes place November 17th and the 18th. And during that time, the floor plan is constantly going to be changing. So just make sure to monitor that as you're preparing for your appointment. Make sure to check the availability of any of the space. I would say the hour before your appointment and even a few minutes before your appointment, as someone right before you may have taken, your top spot. So it's always important to take a look, I would say again, an hour before and then a few minutes before your appointment. That way, when you start your appointment, you have an idea of exactly which spaces you'd like to select or your backup spaces. Also, after you select your booth space, it'll be important to keep an eye on the floor plan to ensure you still like your space as booths develop around you. So as a reminder, our association, our show management will not notify you if a competitor selects near you. However, if you are near a competitor after you've already selected your space, we're more than happy to move you if there's another option that's available that you like better if you prefer to be further away from your competitors. All right, so now we're to the day of your space selection appointment. So that's either going to be November 17th or November 18th. So essentially the day of, before your appointment, you're going to be clicking on a Zoom link to join our waiting room. It will come up with a notification saying that you've joined the waiting room, kind of like you did today. And our exhibits team will admit you based on your appointment time. So for instance, if you were to join 10 minutes before your appointment time, we'll be most likely working with someone else ahead of you. So that means you'll stay in the waiting room until we bring you in to select your space at your official time. If for any reason we run a little behind, we will always message you in the waiting room, which you'll see pop up on your screen, letting you know that we're just finishing up with another appointment. But 10 minutes tends to give plenty of time to take a look at the floor plan and select your space. Again, as a reminder, just to be prompt when you're joining your Zoom appointment, since companies are scheduled just 10 minutes apart. So any kind of delay can have a domino effect. So just be ready. If you have multiple team members that are joining the Zoom, make sure that all of those team members are ready to join at the exact same time. So that way we can let you all in to select the space together. I cannot stress enough about being prepared when you join Zoom. Again, if you have multiple team members, if you're not checking in advance, all those things can play a role in taking a little bit longer to select your space. So it's always good to check with your team of how you want to select your space before you hop on to your appointment with our team. Now, during your appointment, our exhibits team member, it might be myself or Sarah even, will confirm your booth number or your private meeting room space name and size while on the Zoom with you. So we will confirm that information. And once the space is assigned, it is going to automatically populate on the floor plan within about 1 to 2 minutes. So once you see it live on the floor plan, you'll just want to make sure you double check the location and the size is correct on your end. On our end, we will confirm that information, but you'll want to just double check and make sure. In the unlikely event that it's not correct for any reason, please feel free to rejoin the Zoom at any point throughout the day, and our team will let you back in and we can make any corrections. As a reminder, your company's trade show contact is going to receive a confirmation and an invoice the following week after space selection concludes. So at this stage, if you were to submit a contract, you won't automatically get an invoice. You'll get an invoice after space selection. Also, as a reminder here, especially as we prepare for space selection, to please ensure that you're reviewing our rules and regulations, which include key details around booth construction, payment terms, product sampling details, and more. I know it can be a lengthy document to read, but it is included in what you sign in your contract. So I think it's great to always make sure that you're double checking any deadlines in there, any kind of booth display rules and regulations. That is all in our rules and regulations linked to your contract that you submit. It's also linked here so you can take a look in advance before you submit. So just highly recommend reviewing this as you prepare for our 2026 summit. All right, so we're getting toward the end of our slides here, which will leave plenty of time for Q&A, which is great, but want to first review some critical dates. So again, this is a really good slide to either take a photo now or look at our slide deck and this recording afterwards. Just make sure that you have these important deadlines on your calendars. So first is going to be October 31st, which Sarah mentioned earlier. On Halloween is the deadline to submit your 2026 contract in order to participate in space selection. So any contract received after October 31st will of course still accept it, but it will be based on availability at the end of our space selection appointments. So at the end of the 18th. So if you submit it after the fact, then we do have to put you at the end of the schedule. Then next, of course, is going to be November 10th. which is when all companies that submitted a contract are going to receive an email with your appointment information. So if you met our October 31st deadline, then by November 10th, you're going to get an email with the exact date and time to dial in and join your Zoom to pick your space. Space selection, of course, as we said a few times, will be held on November 17th and 18th. And then the following week is when we will send email confirmations and invoices to all companies. As a reminder, December 5th is when your 50% payment is going to be due. And then January 23rd in the new year is when your remaining 50% of your invoice is going to be due. So just take note of those important dates. All right, I am excited to welcome Steve and Sarah back onto camera so we can answer some live questions. And of course, while we're looking at this, I just included all of our contact information here. In case you have any questions, feel free to copy this down or just take note of a lot of the emails you probably have already gotten from us to get in touch. All right, so let's take a look at our Q&A. Of course, a lot of this is about the floor plan, so apologies there for that. Thank you, Sarah, for letting me know. All right. Let's see. I think I don't have any questions that are relevant to the end here. Just was about the floor plan issue earlier. Sorry about that. Let's see. Oh, Sarah, this is a question I think you might be able to answer. So how do we receive the contract to submit our participation before the 31st?
The contract is a live link. Did I go in and out? The contract is a live
You're
link,
back.
which I can certainly send out to you. It is on the website, but again, I'm happy to send that out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Also available, yeah, on our prospectus website. So that's linked in here, and you can easily click that here as well. How much is the square feet for the suites? Great question. So the private meeting rooms are the same as the exhibits, so $30 per square foot. And if you're unsure of maybe kind of how that math adds up, we do show that on in our prospectus, kind of how it's calculated. But if you're unsure, we can also, help guide you there on what that estimate cost would be. Question about sharing the slide deck after. Yes, so this slide deck and the recording will be available within about 24 hours. We'll put it on our exhibits page so that way everyone can take a look after. Will there be a storage area for additional samples in stock? So great question. So our general services contractor, Fern, does offer storage capabilities. So it'll essentially have to be coordinated based on how you ship your freight. But yes, those services are available. They're typically ordered within Fern's service kit. And we'll make sure to call that out in a future webinar so that you have an idea of how to order those services.
And Kelsey, if I can just interject
Yeah,
for
please.
a second on that. So some folks who have been with us for the summit for a number of years will recall that at one point in time, we did offer complimentary storage for any overstock materials. Unfortunately, we do not have sufficient space to be able to offer complimentary storage for additional samples in stock for the 2026 summit. So it is expected that exhibitors will account for that storage capacity within their space. Or as Kelsey mentioned, there is the ability to store materials with Fern, our official contractor, but there is a cost associated with that.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that additional clarification. Seeing a question here specific to someone's contract, so we will definitely follow up with you separately just to make sure that your contract is all set to go. I will say, I was going to type in a message here, but I can say live, if you have any questions as you're completing your contract or you're having any challenges, I would recommend emailing Sarah, whose contact info is on the screen, and we can make sure you get that submitted. Question
And just to add
about,
on to
oh,
that,
sorry, go ahead.
Kelsey, if somebody does, let's say you send in a contract for 200 square feet, and when we get onto space selection, you decide that you want to double that or what have you, we can certainly make those updates. So that's why we don't send out the invoices until after space selection. So if you do want to change anything at that point, we can certainly do that as well. But as Kelsey mentioned, if you do have questions on anything that's happening on that live contract or your exhibit space, please feel free to reach out to me directly.
Thank you, Sarah. Also, a question about technical drawings of our private meeting room floor plans. Yes, we do have that information. So we have both like more just photos for reference and videos for reference, but also if you need very specific technical drawings with points of like outlets, things of that nature, we do have that information. So we don't post all of that information on our site, but if you have a specific room that you're looking at, then we can definitely send that information. It's just because of the size of the drawings that we can't necessarily send them out via email always, but I can definitely see if I can get like a lower resolution file to share. All right, question about first time planning for space on the floor. So that's exciting. Asking if we have to work with Fern. So good question. You're not required to work with Fern for the install or dismantle of your space. However, if you're shipping any freight through the advanced warehouse, Fern will be handling that as material handling. So they do manage that process. But if, for instance, you'd like to hire another company, an approved exhibitor appointed contractor, someone that is licensed to install and dismantle, then you most certainly can. The requirement will be that you will provide us a completed EAC form, which we'll provide in our service kit, which will come out around December. And then also you'll need to provide us a certificate of insurance for reference of that appointed contractor. So we'll keep those on file, and then you're more than welcome to work with another company. Let's see. Oh, question about the entrance to the sessions. Multiple access points, just to clarify. Oh yeah, good question. So let me go ahead and go back here, and I can go back to our floor plan. It's definitely good to review the floor plan in advance, just so that you're very familiar and comfortable with it. So as a reference point, the question was more about on this side as you're coming down the escalators. So there will be multiple access points here into our general session. Those are the doors here. There will be one door going into our networking lounge here. And as you enter the networking lounge, the error wall will be open. So you will be able to access the exhibit hall from this side here, so this door, and then also our entrances here and here. So there's a few access points into the exhibit hall. All right, come back here. All really good questions. Will Fern have temperature controlled storage space? So it is going to depend on exactly what is needed. Depending on the quantity of the item that you're shipping, they do have that service available. It is, again, that is a service for purchase for temperature controlled storage space. So it isn't complimentary provided, but it is something that Fern has the capability to do. But if you have a very specific question of how much you plan to ship, when you need it to be restocked, and timing, I do recommend reaching out to us directly so we can help coordinate that.
And Kelsey, I see there's a related question from the same
Mhm.
company about temperature controlled storage for advanced shipments. And just for clarity on that, any shipments that are temperature sensitive, confections, makeup, things like that, we definitely encourage those to be sent direct to show site and not through advanced warehouse, because the advanced warehouse typically is not temperature controlled. And so if it's shipped direct to show site, which is an option this year, we're not requiring that everything come through the advanced warehouse. If it's sent direct to show site, then it'll be brought in promptly and stored within a temperature controlled environment inside the hotel until it gets delivered to your exhibit space. But in terms of storage during the event, if there is a demand by exhibitors for temperature controlled storage during the event for like extra stock and things like that, then that is something that Fern could be able to do. They would most likely rent a refrigerated trailer, and there would be a cost associated with that temperature controlled storage during the course of the event.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that to clarify. Another good question. So if we're not able to join our space selection appointment on the 17th or 18th, how do you manage an appointment, especially if we're from France or an international country? Great question, because I know that our staff is based between our Washington, D.C. and Chicago. So it's a great question. The timing may not line up. So typically what we recommend is that as long as you've submitted your contract, that means that you have an appointment, and that means that no matter what, a space will be reserved for you even during that time. So let's say that it doesn't work in terms of, maybe you get a 9 a.m. time slot and it ends up being way too late or too early in your time zone. So what that means is that essentially your team will need to let Sarah and I know in your contract, as well as you can always send us an email separately if you'd like, of what your preferences are. Now we take note of those preferences, and during the actual time, in our time zone of when your appointment is, we will select based on those preferences, based on what's available. And again, as soon as we reserve something during that time slot, we will send you an email and say, we know you couldn't make it because of the time zone. So, here is where we placed you based on your preferences. And if you want to move at that time, we're more than happy to also move you. So we can definitely make that accommodation. But because you submitted a contract, you definitely get a space, and we reserve based on those preferences. How do we book for team accommodation? Will there be a link? Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, our registration and housing, we are aiming to launch that around early November. So you will be getting a link so that you can easily book those hotel rooms. All right. For the bartenders, do you guys have that offering, or do we need to contact them by ourselves? Good question. So because you are required, if you're a company that's providing alcohol sampling in your space, you're going to be required to, as I mentioned earlier, hire that bartender that works within the hotel to do the pouring of the alcohol in that space. So your team does have to pay for that, as well as really let our team know. We'll have more communication in that to those companies, that you can let us know if you plan to do sampling. We can make sure that the hotel gets in contact with you to pay for that bartender in your booth.
And Kelsey, that would also be outlined in the catering information that's typically
Yes.
included in the service kit too. So that'll be
Yep.
an easy thing for them to do.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be in multiple places for sampling. We'll remind you in email newsletters that we send, as well as future webinars. But also, yes, to Steve's point, it'll be in the service kit as well. Is there an additional fee for material handling, or is that included in the rental cost? So great question. So it's based on the square footage that you have contracted, but yes, the material handling is included. So whatever you're shipping, it'll be handled by Fern, and then that is included with what you have contracted with us. All righty. Are we allowed to coordinate individual visits to the venue to see the space of the venue directly? Great question. So if you would like to see your space separately, please send us an email. Again, our emails are on the screen here. Send us an email and let us know. We can work to try to get you in contact with the hotel to coordinate that. Of course, that is at the hotel's discretion. If there's an event, at a certain time, they may not necessarily let you come see the space, but we'll definitely help to coordinate that if you'd like to see the space in advance. We know that that's very important. All right. Another question about just sharing the slide deck. Yes, so slide deck and recording will be shared within about 24 hours and posted on our website. Let's see. Oh, will there be catering provided on the show floor? I can probably provide a little bit of a response on that, unless Steve, do you feel like you can take that one?
I'm unclear if the question is, will exhibitors be able to obtain their own catering, or if the question is, are we providing food and beverage on the show floor? So I'm going to answer both. So we are providing a continental breakfast on the first day, which is that Sunday, and on the second day, which is Monday. We'll also have coffee breaks during the summit. And then exhibitors, if they want to contract for catering for within their either private room or their exhibit space, which is a common thing, then there will be catering information in the exhibitor service kit that you can use to order that catering directly through the hotel's catering department. And then one of the benefits of the Rosen, particularly compared to our summit venue for the last 4 years, where food and beverage options have been sparse, The Rosen has, I think it's 8 or 9 or 10 different food outlets within the hotel. So there are many opportunities for folks to be able to get food if you're not doing, in-booth catering or anything like that. There are many opportunities for folks to get food and not have to leave the property. And so that'll be a particularly nice benefit for the 2026 summit.
Oh, there's the clarification too, Steve. Catering company to contract for lunch. Yes, so we'll have in-house catering. You can do that. So Steve answered all the questions about F&B. But yes, if you need to contract, catering for, your staff working your space, you can do that. But there are plenty of outlets, as Steve mentioned, in the hotel. So those are also really easy, quick bites that you can, grab for your staff. Any additional questions? These are all great questions. It shows that we're excited to get started. I'll give it another minute.
And while we're waiting for any other questions, Kelsey, we've mentioned that things will be posted on the website. Just for clarity, we do have a dedicated summit website, which is summitoftheamericas with an S.org. There's no year in it this year, so just summitoftheamericas.org. That is the dedicated summit website where you can find information about exhibiting and sponsoring. There's a link to the prospectus on there. And then that is also the same website where we will post information about registration, about housing. There's a preliminary schedule on there as well. So that is the summit website that we're referring to when we say website. We still have the separate association website as well that has a link to the main summit website.
Also, just saw a new question. Can we book hotel rooms in the hotel for the duration of the summit? Yes, you can. So those will be available. Sometimes they may book up fast. So once we launch them, just highly recommend gathering with your team, making those reservations in advance to ensure you get our special negotiated rate at the Rosen Shingle. Any other questions? Will there be an app or website to book appointments with potential clients? That's a good question. We will have a mobile app, but more information to come from our team of kind of what those capabilities will look like. But definitely good feedback for us to take into account.
And I'll mention that our intent is to offer the mobile app with similar characteristics and capabilities to the Summit mobile app we've had previously, where in advance of the summit, typically 3 to 4 weeks before the summit, we will have the list of registered attendees in it with full contact information so that we can facilitate connections between attendees in advance of the summit. So that is our intent for 2026 as well.
Steve, did you want to also maybe speak to the question about panelist opportunities?
Sure. So we are in the process right now of developing the education program for the 2026 summit. And typically we do source speakers for our education program from within the industry. So if any of you either A, have recommendations for speakers that you've seen at other events in our industry that you think would be beneficial for us to consider, or if B, any of you have colleagues that you think are, knowledge or thought leaders that we should consider trying to incorporate in any of our panels or sessions, please do reach out to me directly, and I'll be able to forward that information to the team members that are working on our education program for 2026.
Thanks, Steve. All right, a question here about how we're going to encourage more retailer participation. Well, that's a really good question. And what I can honestly say right now is that our team is actually currently putting together, as we plan for next year, of anything that we do to really promote participation from the buyer base. So I would say that in future webinars, we will have more details of kind of all the things that our team is doing to really bring forward and really encourage more attendance. But Steve, I'm not sure if you have maybe other points you'd like to add.
Sure. So, one of the things that we've all seen in this industry over the years is the evolution from duty-free to travel retail, and now this broadening of travel retail to encompass not just the operators of stores that are selling products, but also the food and beverage component of travel retail. And so we're always looking for opportunities to expand our retailers that are attending the event. And so we do that in various ways, advertising in industry trade publications, trying to source contact lists that are, verified and reliable contact lists that we can use for marketing. And then also empowering our exhibitors, our board members, and other stakeholders to help to get the word out about the summit. And that's something that we always appreciate. Our exhibitors have been good at doing that, sending out their own invitations and encouraging their own contact lists to participate in the event. So we view this as definitely a partnership opportunity for the chance to broaden the retailer base that attends the event for the benefit of all. And so that is something that we've been looking at and talking at the board level about is making sure that we are casting the net as wide as we can to broaden the retailer base that is attending. And again, by retailer, I'm including both the store operators and then also that food and beverage category as well.
Thank you, Steve. All right, well, it looks like we've gotten to the end of our questions. If there's any last minute ones, we'll try to answer those. But I do just want to say from our entire team, thank you so much for joining, watching this record, either joining live today or watching the recording after. Thank you for watching it. This is going to be made available, as I mentioned before, the slide deck and the recording on the website. We'll aim for within about 24 hours to get that posted. So that way your team can take another look at this. Again, look at our tips and tricks to make sure that you're ready for space selection. And in the meantime, if there's any questions, of course, feel free to email any of the emails on the screen. We'll get you the answer that you need. But especially Sarah and myself, we're more than happy to help with any of those specific questions that you have. So we're just a call away, just an email away. And we appreciate everyone's time. There'll be more to come, and we look forward to seeing everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everybody.
everyone.